Hi, this is Boyd Neal, and welcome to CDPR 114. We'll be spending the next 12 weeks together learning about reputation management, and I'm looking forward to it. I always enjoy teaching this course, in particular because we can see every day when we read the newspaper challenges to individual reputation, to corporate reputation, to organizational or government reputation. In other words, reputation is something that is alive today, and it is something that as public relations professionals we can have an influence over. And the purpose of this course over the next 13 weeks is, I hope, to arm you to better prepare your organization to manage reputation, whether that organization is a nonprofit, a government department, or a corporation. So that's the goal, is to prepare you to develop reputation programs, to manage reputation issues, to handle crises, to understand the relationship of ethics and responsibility to your organization, and to make you, in the long run, better public relations professionals. So that's by way of general introduction. I wanted to say a couple of things about teamwork. I mentioned it in the email that I sent earlier this morning, that I think that teamwork is very important. It's one of the things that happens to be a centerpiece of distance learning, is that you depend as much on your classmates as on your professor to learn. Although I will try and do more of these videos over the next period of time so that you get some sense of what I think about specific issues, a lot of your learning comes from the interaction that you have with your classmates in your small teams. With respect to the first assignment in the small teams, it actually, although I was worried a little bit at first that the teams were coming together, in fact, by the end of the first week, there was considerable discussion on most of the teams. There were a couple of teams that were lagging, but that always is the case, and I wouldn't worry about it too much, except I want to stress that working in your team is important. Get to know the people in your team. You'll probably be taking other courses with them, either in class or online. So it's really good to begin to get the right dynamics. I don't want to set up formal expectations with respect to small team operation. And if there are problems, I hope that what you do is you resolve them among yourselves rather than trying to get me to intervene. But if you can't resolve them among yourselves, then give me a call and I'll do what I can to fix it. With that as background, I wanted to just throw out a few ideas that came out of the discussion that did take place within the small teams, and the level of discussion was very good. I know that some of you haven't yet taken possession of the book, Reputation Management by Durley and Garcia, but I hope by now most of you have it, and that you will catch up if you've fallen behind a little bit. The discussion was actually quite good. And there's a number of points that I wanted to raise about the discussion that took place and give you some of my perspective on it. And I think I've got about 5 or 6 things I wanted to say. First, reputation plans, as somebody said, within organizations aren't static. Yes, it's necessary to write a reputation management strategy for an organization, or to have in mind what your plan will be to help it manage its reputation. Sometimes internal processes prevent actually constructing a proper strategy, which requires research and benchmarking, requires message development and positioning and that kind of thing. And some organizations don't want to invest the time needed to do it. Regardless, you as a professional, if you're working within an organization, have to have in your own mind your strategies and tactics for managing your organization's reputation. One of the key things about reputation is you should really be monitoring it very closely, whether that's monitoring it formally through formal research, which a number of organizations do, often though those are large organizations, or whether or not it's you, based on your interaction with your stakeholders, keeping some kind of record or some kind of profile of how your organization is seen in the minds of those stakeholders. That can be done just by you observing and learning from your stakeholders. So it can be monitoring can be everything from a formal survey conducted by a firm like Ipsos to your own creation of a viewpoint on how stakeholders see the reputation of your organization. It's actually today it's easier to get a sense of the reputation of your organization by using the social web as a tool for listening, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I don't know if it's in 4 or 5, session 4 or 5, or if you've taken my social media course, you'll know that monitoring is something that can help you understand how your organization is seen by stakeholders. And as you know from the material and the reading, reputation is how others see you. We make a distinction between character, brand, and reputation. Character is who you are. It's your intrinsic identity, as Durley and Garcia call it. Brand is how you present yourself to the world. And reputation is how the world sees you. And I think throughout the course we'll be referring to those 3 concepts. So I hope you keep it in mind. Again, character is who you are, your intrinsic identity. Brand is how you present yourself to the world, which it's hoped will reflect your character. And in fact, if your character isn't reflected in your brand and there is a disconnect, then that can cause reputation damage. And then finally, reputation is how others see you, how your stakeholders see you. So reputation is composed of a bunch of things. The book defines reputation as performance plus behavior plus communications, and defines what performance is and what behavior is. I tend to think of communication as a multiplier rather than an addition. So you can have high quality financial performance. You can be a responsible manufacturer. You can act ethically within your community. But if you don't talk about it, then the performance and behavior won't accrue to your reputation. If you do talk about it, and you talk about it well, you can actually enhance the appearance of your performance and behavior. Appearance makes it sound like you're faking it or it's spin, which is not the case. It means that people can understand better your performance and behavior if you communicate well. That's why I like to think of it as a multiplier effect. The second concept that was raised in some of the discussion in the small teams was the importance of ethics and responsible conduct. And we're going to spend a considerable amount of time in the course, in the mid to the end of the course, talking about corporate social responsibility, although there isn't a whole course to look at that in the certificate, or a whole half course, I believe. We're going to think a little bit about ethics, you as a public relations professional, what it means to act ethically on behalf of your corporation. And we'll also talk about global responsibility, how companies who are working in conflict environments, such as Shell in Nigeria, or in the past Hudbay in Guatemala, or Talisman when it was in Sudan, or any one of hundreds of corporations who have global operations, who operate in environments where there are conflicts going on and they have to determine how to act in those environments. So yes, indeed, ethics and responsibility are critical factors that we'll be looking at a little bit in the course. The other concept I wanted to talk about is the book talks about authenticity. It wants to add an authenticity factor to the formula of performance plus behavior plus communication, or times communication, depending on whether you believe Dooley and Garcia or you believe me. And I'm a little hesitant about that whole authenticity concept. And the reason is that it's become something of a marketing term. Things being authentic. You know, this is made of authentic leather. This is made of authentic cow's milk or something like that. And it's become a little bit like that adverb really. You know how frequently people will say, you know, I really believe this is true, or what I really thought was, and what I really, you know, it's become something of a word that has lost some of its some of its ability to really communicate something. I think a better concept is honesty and truth. These are things, one other comment about authenticity. How is it measurable? How do you measure authenticity? I don't think you can. And I think that that means it's less effective as a concept in managing reputation. You can't be accountable for being authentic or not, because authentic is something that is in the eyes of stakeholders. What you can be accountable for is being honest and being truthful. And you'll find when it comes to crisis communications, for example, that there's absolutely no point in communicating in a crisis through trying to hide the truth of what's going on. You also have to be honest about your own role in the crisis. So, and the extent to which you are honest and truthful in the crisis is the extent to which your reputation will be preserved out of it. So, I tend to avoid the concept of authenticity, and I tend to think more in terms of honesty and truthfulness as being goals of communication for an organization that wants to enhance or defend its reputation. The other thing I think that was raised in the groups that is significant is the role of CEOs. The CEO is, in fact, the chief reputation officer. The CEO is the reflection of the corporation or the organization in the public eyes. In the public's eye, rather. And the fact is that part of your responsibility as a reputation manager is going to be to encourage the CEO to recognize his or her role in being the reputation manager for the organization. So we'll talk a little bit more throughout the course about CEOs and how to have CEOs accept the responsibility, and how CEOs can be made to properly reflect the organization and therefore defend its reputation. And then the final thing I wanted to comment on was that that there are a lot of external factors in play when it comes to managing an organization reputation. Sometimes there are things that militate against a company's reputation in spite of its ethical behavior. So, for example, conflict environments is a good example of this. I did some work for Talisman 12 years ago when it was had its investments in the Heglig oil fields in Sudan. At the time, Sudan was involved in a terrible civil war, the North against the South. The Heglig oil fields were in the South. There were demands put on Talisman as a corporation to take a position in the civil war, and a position that really, as a company, it wasn't in a position to do. And so you have in that circumstance a war, and the question becomes, should Talisman be there? At the time, the question was, should Talisman be there? If it sold its company, which it eventually did, or sold the oil fields, its oil operations, to another company, that company had a record of complete unconcern about human rights. So was it better for a company to have sold the Heglig oil fields to a company that couldn't care less about the people that were suffering around it? Or would it have been better for Talisman to remain in the country and build schools and build medical facilities? Talisman's reputation was severely damaged by the fact that it did have a position in the Heglig oil fields. Its reputation was damaged because it didn't sell right away, and church organizations and activists and members of the general public all felt that it should do something about the war. The work that we did at the time, I felt, culminated in an editorial in the Globe and Mail once that said, the title of the editorial was, "Let Talisman be Talisman." In other words, companies can't be expected to act as governments. So given all of that, given the fact that the expectations of people on what companies can and can't do might be too high, might be unrealistic, an organization's reputation can in fact be damaged, even if its performance and behavior, even if its financial performance is excellent and its behavior is above reproach. External factors may indeed influence the organization, and those external factors may be things over which you have absolutely no control. So those are some of the things that I wanted to contribute to the discussion that happened over the past week. I hope you find those things useful, and I hope to do more of these recordings as we go along, so you get to know a little bit about how I think, you get to learn a little bit more beyond what's in the textbook, and you get a sense of some of the things that I think are most valuable to think of. Again, thank you, and please be in touch if you have questions.